When the tent was found, it had been torn open from the inside, as if the hikers had tried to escape from something in the middle of the night, in the freezing -30 degrees Celsius cold. Bare footprints marked the snow for a few meters and then vanished. The first bodies were discovered near the edge of the forest, their faces frozen in panic. Others had internal injuries so severe they resembled a car crash, yet with no external wounds. Among their belongings, photographs captured strange lights in the sky moments before the tragedy. Nothing explained what truly happened that night, and to this day, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of the most unsettling mysteries in history. In late January of 1959, 9 young mountaineers set out on an expedition into the Ural Mountains, believing it would be just another challenge among the many they had already faced together. They were experienced, disciplined, and documented every step of the journey with photos and notes. The last images show faint smiles, snow covering everything around them, and the wind pushing against the tent's canvas as they set up camp atop Kolashachel, a name that, in the local language, means Mountain of the Dead. Even so, nothing suggested that these would be their final moments captured alive. Days later, when they failed to return as scheduled, search teams were deployed. What they found looked like the aftermath of something impossible to explain. The tent was partially buried under snow, but what truly drew attention was the irregular slash in the fabric. It had been cut from the inside out, as if all of them had torn their way out in desperate haste. Around it, no signs of struggle, no animal tracks, no evidence of an attack. Only silence, and barefoot footprints leading toward the nearby forest. The impressions in the snow showed hurried steps, some barely leaving a mark, as if the hikers were running without strength, struggling to stay upright. But the most disturbing part was the context. Temperatures that night reached -30 degrees Celsius, and yet all of them seemed to have abandoned coats, boots, and essential gear. As investigators followed the trail, they noticed something stranger still. The footprints began in an organized line, and suddenly scattered, as if the group had split apart in panic. The search continued for days before the first bodies were found. 2 were lying beneath a tree, as if they had tried to build an improvised fire. Their hands were burned, their faces frozen in expressions of terror. Nothing made sense. Nothing fit. It was only the beginning of a mystery that scientists, investigators, and the entire world would try to understand and fail. The discovery of the first 2 bodies only deepened the strangeness of the case. They were without boots, without proper coats, as if they had fled into the storm in a panic. The improvised fire beside them showed signs of desperate attempts to survive the cold. Yet there were no marks of struggle, no animal tracks. Only the unsettling impression that those young hikers had fought, until their final moments, against something they could never explain. A few meters away, 3 more members of the expedition were found in different positions, as if they had tried to return to the tent but never made it. One was gripping a small tree so tightly that his fingers had frozen in place. Another was leaning forward, as though he had collapsed mid-run. The arrangement of the bodies didn't resemble a normal escape, nor simple hypothermia. It was as if each one had experienced an individual terror, separated from the group, unable to orient themselves. Still without answers, the rescue team continued searching for the remaining 4 members. And what they found weeks later took the case to a new level of mystery. They were inside a small ravine covered in deep snow. 2 had fractured ribs and skulls with such extreme force that specialists compared it to a high-speed car crash. Yet, inexplicably, their skin showed no external damage, no bruises, no wounds, as if their bodies had been crushed without being touched. One of the hikers was found without her tongue. Another was missing his eyes, and some of their clothing contained inexplicably high levels of radiation, despite the group having no known contact with radioactive materials. Nothing followed logic. No explanation tied all the details together. Every discovery seemed to contradict the last. Investigators tried to piece together a timeline, but everything collapsed under the weight of the facts. The tent slashed from within, the barefoot escape, the group splitting apart, the impossible internal injuries, the missing organs, the radiation. With every step, another unanswered question emerged. The mountain seemed to be hiding something it refused to reveal. And the more they tried to understand, the more the Dyatlov Pass case slipped through their fingers, like snow melting before it touches the ground. As months passed, Soviet authorities attempted to close the case, claiming the hikers had been victims of an irresistible natural force. But no one believed that, not after the impossible details. And so, theories began to emerge, some rational, others deeply disturbing. The most cited explanation was an avalanche. However, specialists quickly dismissed it. The tent was still visible, intact enough for analysis. The slope of the terrain was too shallow, and the hikers, experienced as they were, would never have camped in an avalanche-prone area. Besides, an avalanche wouldn't explain why they abandoned everything in such an organized way, nor the violent internal injuries without external wounds. Nothing fit. Another theory pointed to secret military tests. The region was known for Soviet experiments, and strange lights had been seen in the sky that night, captured even in the photos recovered from the group's camera. Luminous spheres crossed the horizon like something that did not belong there. But if it was a test, why were there no signs of explosions, debris, or burns? And still, how to explain the radiation found on their clothing? Some suggested the group panicked due to infrasound, low-frequency vibrations capable of causing extreme anxiety, disorientation, and a sense of being chased. But even that theory fails to explain the impossible fractures, the missing tongue, the scattered footprints, and the fact that some hikers died trying to return. There were also those who blamed the local Mansi tribe, but that hypothesis was ruled out. There were no signs of confrontation, and the Mansi had no reason to attack the group, nor had they ever been violent with explorers. Over time, darker theories surfaced. Some spoke of encounters with something unknown in the forest, a presence that might have thrown the hikers into absolute panic. Others pointed to a rare atmospheric phenomenon capable of producing light, heat, and radiation. And there were even those who believed the hikers had unintentionally captured something on film that was never meant to be seen. The official conclusions were updated in 2019, stating that an unusual avalanche had caused the tragedy. But once again, the explanation collapses when faced with the facts. It is like trying to force the wrong piece into a puzzle that refuses to close. The only concrete truth is that the final minutes of the expedition remain invisible, frozen in the darkness of that mountain. Not even time has managed to erase the questions, and all of them continue waiting for answers that may never come. The truth remains buried beneath the snow, and perhaps it's better that way.